Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. It is Innistrad Midnight Hunt pre-release weekend, which means some copies of cards are starting to get out there into people's hands. Next week, though, of course, when the set officially drops, a lot of cards will be hitting the market. As we have been seeing throughout the preview season, however, cards from this set are impacting the prices of existing cards, and you're going to see that throughout the video today. Plus, there are other things happening in the market as well. We'll talk about it all in just a minute, but quickly before we get into the details, just a fast reminder, if you go to FlipsideGaming.com, you can use that Heroes promo code to save 10% on orders over $10. Currently, you can pre-order Innistrad Midnight Hunt products there. They also have a whole lot of other things on their website. Remember, if your order is over $100 or it consists only of singles, shipping will be free in the United States. And whenever you use that promo code, it does support the channel, which is always appreciated. So thank you. And without any further ado, let's get into it. Well, we are a week away from standard rotation, and there's just not a whole lot happening in the world of standard this week, so I don't have a standard legal spotlight. The threshold for this video is $2, so we're not going to talk about anything unless it's moving at least $2 up or down. And we begin with the Pioneer Legal Spotlight. This is where we talk about cards that are Pioneer Legal moving the most this week. First, we have some cards going down in value, beginning with Temple Garden from Ravnica City of Guilds. It goes down $205 this week to $19.99. Now, Shocklands were reprinted again recently in the Culture Shock Secret Layers, and next year they're going to be reprinted again in an upcoming unset called Unfinity. There, they're going to be in the form of full art space-themed cards. Now, when it comes to gameplay, Shocklands like this one are going to show up in a lot of decks in Pioneer, Modern, and in Commander. They're in many builds, old and new. Next is Nicol Bolas the Ravager. This goes down $207 to $31.49. This was recently trending up due to the push Commander Dragon Tribal got from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. Now it is cooling off some. It is a pretty popular commander and found in the 99 of builds like the Ur-Dragon, Tiamat, and more. Next is Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, down $210 to $55.11. Now this is not seeing as much play as it did about 6 months ago, and it has been steadily declining. Pioneer, this is usually in the sideboard of Mono Green Ramp, but there are some builds that run it in the main. In Modern, you'll find this in Tron, Legacy Cloud Post builds, and in Commander, this is in Kozilek the Great Distortion, and much more. And the last card losing value in this section is Rest in Peace. This is the copy from the list, only there though during Zendikar Rising. It is down $3 this week to $11. This copy was and still is a little higher than the others, but you do see it normalizing down some this week. This is a solid sideboard card that is found in many decks in a number of formats. Pioneer, Modern, Legacy. Also gets some Commander play in different decks too. Mox Amber, this is up $209 this week to $38.69. This is another card seeing less play now in Pioneer and Modern than a few months ago, but it is still a solid Commander card. It even did get a little more play there recently in some Oswald Fiddlebender builds. Last card in this section is Relentless Dead. It is up $577 this week to $22.24. Solid card in various Commander zombie builds currently, but Innistrad Midnight Hunt, of course, has been pushing this one. The set has a ton of zombie support. Perhaps we may even see a new zombie build in Pioneer or Modern. The reason, though, Relentless Dead is moving again this week ties into the fact that we finally saw the deck list for the zombie Commander deck that's coming out with Midnight Hunt that is called Undead Unleashed. And guess what? This was not reprinted there. It would be a good upgrade to that deck, or perhaps you just want to build around one of the cards from that deck from scratch and you want to include this. Will Help the Rock Cleaver is the front-facing commander for that product. Alright, that takes us to the Modern Legal Spotlight. Again, we have some cards going down in value and then some going up in value. Wrenn 6, this is the copy from the list, and it did leave the list after Kel Time. It goes down $396 this week to $124.99. Now, Wizards announced Double Masters 2022 not too long ago, and when they did, they showed the art for this card here, so it looks like this will be reprinted in that set. That has softened this copy and the Modern Horizons copy up a little bit, but Wrenn 6 still sees a lot of play in a lot of places. Modern Lurrus Jund, 5-color Lurrus, Indomitable Creativity, Scapeshift, and more. It is banned in Legacy, but it does get some Vintage and Commander play. And remember, Innistrad Midnight Hunt gives us Wrenn 7. I could see Wrenn 6 getting more play at least in Commander alongside that card. Aboro Palace in the Clouds is down $477 this week to $83.50. This dipped a couple weeks ago, It recovered some last week, down again this week. Wizards did announce that next year we are returning to Kamigawa in a set called Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Now, I don't think they're going to necessarily put this in the main set, making it standard legal, but there is a chance we could see some kind of subset, or maybe they just stick this in the list, because it does feel like it is overdue for a reprint. And that's what's getting some speculators and some collectors to back off this card a little bit. When it comes to gameplay, this is in Modern Mill, and that deck is seeing a good amount of play in the format. You'll also find this in Merfolk builds there too, and it does see some Commander play. Cavern of Souls from Ultimate Masters, it is back again, this week down 481 to 99.94. You might remember a few weeks back, this particular copy of the card spiked kind of out of nowhere. The others were stable. Since then, it has been normalizing down, getting closer in price to the other copies. Another thing that's important to note about this card is it is currently on the list. It joined with Kjell time, and it is still there even through Innistrad Midnight Hunt. So more copies will be entering the marketplace as people start opening those set booster boxes again. Now, when it comes to gameplay, this card is everywhere. In Modern, you'll find this in 5-color Elementals, Eldrazi Tron, Amulet Titan, Spirits, Humans, Eldrazi, Merfolk, Goblins. This also gets Legacy play, but it is a highly played Commander card in lots of different decks, including Dragon builds, which have been popular recently, one of them being Tiamat. This is another card that could be poised to increase in value too, because of Innistrad Midnight Hunt. We mentioned Undead Unleashed earlier, that's a zombie deck, this could be a good upgrade there. The other deck that's coming out with this product is Coven Counters. That has a lot of humans. And remember, the main set supports humans, zombies, werewolves, wolves, spirits, ooze, vampires. On top of that, I'm sure you're going to see very similar tribal themes in Crimson Vow. And they're going to focus even more with that set on vampires. In fact, there's going to be 2 commander decks coming out with that as well. Spirit Squadron. Sure sounds like a spirit deck to me. And Vampiric Bloodline. So I have no doubt over the next few months, there's going to be a lot of players looking to either upgrade those decks with a card like this, or build fresh tribal builds around some of these cards we're getting from both Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow. Liliana of the Veil from Innistrad is next. This is down $5 to $89.99. And this is another card that is seeing less play now in this post-Modern Horizons 2 meta. The decks that do run it are not the most popular right now, but in Modern you will see this in the Rock. Sometimes this is in Reanimator or 4-color Karth. Legacy, it's in Pox. And this does still get some Commander play too. Cryptic Command, the copy from the list, is down $5.58 to $29.49, and this was only there during Zendikar Rising. But this is another example of a card that is normalizing down to get closer in price to the other copies. This is in Modern Control decks, and it is a solid Commander card, seeing more play now in Min Wiley Illusionist builds. Relentless Assault, the copy from Portal Second Age, this is down $10.15 this week to $9.99. Again, we have a situation where one particular copy of a card dried up in the online marketplace, the card spiked, and now there's more copies re-entering the marketplace, and that price is coming back down. This is a solid Commander card though, it's a good upgrade to Draconic Rage. It's also in fresh builds around Wolfgar, Icewind Dale. Plus this is already showing up in Tovolar, Dire Overlord. I do think that's going to be one of the more popular Commander builds that come out of Innistrad Midnight Hunt, because we're getting a lot of new werewolf support, of course. As a matter of fact, last week there was a Tolarian Community College video discussing Tovolar Commander builds, and this card was one of the ones mentioned. I could also see this getting more Commander play in Vampire builds, especially when Crimson Vow comes out. Lurgoy from Deckmasters, Garfield vs. Finkel, this copy only comes in foil. It is down $10.86 this week to $11.68. A few weeks back, there was some talk about early foils like this one on an MTG Finance message board, and this card did begin to dry up, it did begin to spike, but now, as you can see, copies are returning to the marketplace. It is coming back down again. When it comes to gameplay, sees a little Commander play. Back to cards going up in price with Torpor Orb. This is up $3.54 this week to $23.52. This is another very solid Modern sideboard card, and since it is colorless, it can cross over into a number of different builds. It is decent against Archon of Cruelty, and it has a lot of other targets like the Evoke Elemental cycle for Modern Horizons 2. You see those a lot in the format. There's lots of reasons overall to be playing this card right now in Modern. You'll find this in sideboards of builds like Loris Jund, Eldrazi Tron, Hardened Scales. Sometimes it's at Tempo or Jeskai Control and more. Additionally, it also continues to get a good amount of Legacy play, and it has seen some more Commander play too in some Oswald Fiddlebender builds. Plus, I have seen this in some early Lyn Cheerful Tormentor Commander lists as well. More on that card later. Mikaeus the Unhallowed, the original copy from Dark Ascension, is up $3.70 this week to $46.50. Now, this is being added to the list with Innistrad Midnight Hunt. I do want to make sure everybody's aware of that. However, it does take a little time for any particular card from the list, especially when it's new to the list, to start circulating out there in the market. Having said that, this is a solid commander card. Sometimes you even see this as the commander. It can be a good upgrade to Undead Unleashed, and in addition to being a part of new commander zombie builds, you may also see this in some future vampire builds. Spellbinder. Traditionally, this has seen a little commander play, but this week it's going up $12.02 to $14.95. What is going on? Well, to understand what's happening with this card, we have to talk about another card that's next on the list. That card is Savage Beating. We'll get there in a second. Now, Savage Beating did start to see some more commander play prior to the Innistrad Midnight Hunt preview season. Some players were picking it up as an upgrade to Draconic Rage. Others were putting it in fresh builds around Wolfgar of Icewind Dale. However, the reason this and Savage Beating started to move recently is again in part because of that Tolarian Community College video discussing Tovolar commander builds. The professor did bring up the combo of Spellbinder and Savage Beating, which most likely introduced that combo to a number of players for the first time. I'm sure you will see this in future Commander Werewolf builds, probably Vampire builds too, and many other places in the format. And here's that second card, Savage Beating. It is up $19.70 this week to $38. And number one for the Modern Legal section is Worldfire, but it is another card moving because of Commander. This is up $21.52 to $23. First off, this was banned in Commander. It was not a very popular Magic card at all just a few days ago. What changed? The Rules Committee did their quarterly update and they did unban this in the Commander format. The result was Commander players as well as speculators went back to the secondary market and they were trying to get their copies. Now, how much gameplay will this see in Commander? I don't think it's an auto-include in every deck that's running red, but it's going to show up in some decks for sure from time to time. And a little Commander play is a whole lot more play than basically the no play this was seeing before. I do think some of this increase is due to the fear of missing out, so be careful with this card. Plus, it only had one printing. It's yet to be reprinted, which is why it moved as drastically as it did. If it does get a reprint at some point, it will drop very quickly. I do think you're going to see this card maybe ride a wave, at least for another few days before it begins to normalize down a little bit. There are a lot of content creators talking about it, talking about combos. And those kind of articles and videos are going to push the card, at least for a little while. And that takes us to the Vintage Spotlight. This is where we talk about cards that see play in Legacy, Vintage, 93, 94, or cards that are just popular among collectors. And there is still market manipulation happening in the vintage market, so be careful, but there is far less compared to what we were seeing just a few months ago. I do want to remind everybody, though, like I do every week, that when you're talking about vintage cards, especially older, more iconic ones, if you go to those price tracking websites and you see a price that feels really high, don't forget that these are prices for high-grade copies, and they're typically some kind of average price between high-grade raw and high-grade graded copies. So it is always good if you're making a purchase to do your homework a little bit, check out something like eBay, sold and completed listings, and see what the cards have been selling for. In this section of the video, the prices you see on the screen are going to be very similar to what you might see on a price tracking website, but if I'm seeing something a little different in the sales, then I will let you know. Mana Crypt, we have Eternal Masters up $218 this week to $153.99. The original media promo book giveaway is up $423 to $390.10. This gets a lot of vintage and a lot of commander play and builds old and new. Remember though, convention mystery booster boxes were recently sent out to game stores, getting more copies of this out there. But to offset that a little bit, this did get a mention in a Tolarian Community College video as a card that you might want to search up in Commander with a new card from Innistrad Midnight Hunt, Moonsilver Key. Mox Diamond from Stronghold is next. It is up $12.23 to $654.02. Legacy, you'll find this in lands. Knight of the Reliquary also gets a good amount of commander play. Mana Flare from Unlimited. These Unlimited cards have been hot recently. This one's going up $14.10 to $94.97. And as a matter of fact, all the white border cards in this section are from the Unlimited set. So I won't keep saying that. When you see a white border card on the screen, just know it's from that set. Jandor's Ring from Arabian Nights goes up $17.50 to $107.75. Recall from Legends up $17.99 to $184.99. And this just goes to show you that collectors don't necessarily care about just picking up reserve list cards. Many are happy to get a lot of these older cards in high grade so they can get them graded, regardless of their status on the reserve list. Howling Mine, this goes up $20 to $179.99. This was reprinted recently with this original art in the Artist Series Mark Poul Secret Lair. Brain Geyser, it's up $20.60 to $203. Earthquake up $22.03 to $136.98. King Suleiman, this goes up $22.90 to $244.99. Rock of Courage is up $27.28 to $80. Raging River up $30.45 to $325.99. Gaia's Cradle from Urza Saga is up $40.79 to $1,039.99. This has been trending down recently, but jumps up again this week. Legacy, it's in Elves, Maverick, 4-color loam. Vintage, you'll find this in Hollowvine. Plus, it is a great commander card in numerous builds if you're lucky enough to own a copy. Scrubland up $102.49 to $1,099.99. I will say this though, I have seen high-grade raw copies of this sell for about $1,000. Next time a high-grade graded copy does sell, I do think it could go for quite a bit more than this price. Wheel of Fortune from Unlimited. This goes up $124.49 to $1,198. And again, high-grade raws can now break about $800. I haven't seen a high-grade graded copy sell for a while, but I could see the price on the screen falling somewhere in between high-grade raw and high-grade graded copies easily. Mishra's Factory from Antiquities. This is the winter variant going up $151.31 to $849.50. And this is very similar to the previous card. I have seen high-grade raw copies approaching $600. I haven't seen any high-grade graded copies sell for a while. But when one does, I do think again this price will fall in between high-grade raw and high-grade graded. Vesuvian Doppelganger. Now this one is inflated. It's going up $225 to $625.04 in theory. When you look at true sales though, high-grade raw copies are selling for about $200. High-grade graded copies about $370. Underground Sea up $297 to $2,089.99. Is that price for real? Well, high-grade raw copies can hit about $1,700. So I do think the next time a high-grade graded copy sells, it could go for more than the price you see on the screen. And finally for this section, because why not? Black Lotus is up $8,453.01 to $32,255.01. Is that for real? Well, I did see a high-grade graded copy sell for just under this price point. However, raw high-grade copies tend to sell closer to $14,000. Much more affordable, right? And on that note, back to some cards that we might actually be able to afford. Welcome to the Commander Spotlight. Enlightened Tutor from Eternal Masters. It's up $203 to $47.49. This gets a ton of Commander play and even has been seeing some more play recently. Some players have picked this up as an upgrade to Aura of Courage. Others are putting it in fresh builds around Galia, Kindler of Hope. And it does get a little legacy play too. Curse of Misfortunes up $216 to $320. Pretty good percentage increase here. This currently gets a little legacy play in a curse deck. And it gets some commander play in Gen Arcanum Weaver and more. Remember though, Innistrad Midnight Hunt is bringing us a bunch of new curses. And more importantly, it is bringing us a legendary creature to build a commander deck around and put some of these curses in. That card is Lind, Cheerful Tormentor. I mentioned it earlier. It can only be found in set boosters and collector boosters. Its color identity is Grixis, so you can't put every curse in there. But this curse does fit into those builds, and I am seeing a lot of players putting together deck lists around that card already. Plus, Curse of Misfortunes did get a Command Zone podcast mention this week as a card you may want to put in one of those builds. Maze of Ith, the original copy from the Dark, is up $222 this week to $37.99. This is found in a number of different commander builds. In Legacy, you'll see this in lands too. Mystic Gate from Double Masters is up $230 this week to $16.64. This is a solid commander mana base card. In Modern, though, you'll see this in some builds there. Jeskai Control as well as Azorius Yorion. Glimpse of Nature, another card from the original Kamigawa block, so like I was saying earlier, be careful. But this is going up $240 this week to $27.98. This is banned in Modern, but it does show up in Legacy Elves. It is a solid commander card in Elf builds and more there. It has seen some increased play in that format as well around Volo Guide to Monsters recently. And now with Innistrad Midnight Hunt, you may see this appear in some new builds around werewolves or humans. We did get the deck list for Coven Counters this week as well. It was not reprinted there, and it would make a good upgrade. Bloodstained Mire, the original from Onslaught, is up $263 to $89.99. Like all fetch lands, this does see play in many builds in Modern and Legacy. And of course, it is a huge land in Commander. Maybe some players are getting ready for some Crimson Vow Rakdos Vampires. Blood Moon from 9th edition up $268 this week to $35.48. In general, all copies of Blood Moon have been relatively hot. For the most part, they have stabilized, but this one is jumping up a little bit again this week. It does get a good amount of commander play in various builds, but the reason Blood Moons have been so hot is really because of Modern. This is showing up in the main deck and sideboards of a lot of different builds there. Is it Tempo, Crashing Footfalls, Charbelcher, is it Control, Enchantress, and more? This also continues to see a lot of Legacy play and a little Vintage play. Sakashima Student, this is the one from Plane Chase Anthology. It goes up 282 this week to 5145. This is in Commander Yuriko the Tiger Shadow builds and more. And there is speculation that we may see Ninjutsu come back in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Burgeoning from Stronghold. Now, this is another card that could be getting a little bit of a push from Renin 7. It is a good commander card already in a lot of different builds, and it could be poised to see more play in the future. It goes up 389 this week to 34.95. Season of the Witch. Now, this does see a tad bit of commander play, but reserve list cards from the Dark have been popular on and off with collectors. This is the one moving up this week. It goes up $4 to $53.89. Aggravated Assault, the copy from Explorers of Ixalan, is up $4.93 this week to $41.74. Now, this has seen more commander play in Dragon builds recently. Of course, that tribe did get a push from Adventurers in the Forgotten Realms. It is a good upgrade to Draconic Rage. Also, players are putting this in fresh builds around Wolfgarve, Icewind Dale, and it plays well with Old Gnawbone. But the reason I think it's getting hot again now is because of Innistrad Midnight Hunt, of course. I do see a lot of people maybe putting this in Commander Werewolf or maybe Vampire decks going forward. It is also another card that showed up in that Tolarian Community College Tovolar build video, and I have seen this showing up in early Commander deck lists around that card. Here's another card that currently gets a little Commander play, but could be seeing a lot more in the future. Curse of Vengeance, up 773 to 1873. We already discussed why curses are hot, but why is this one going up as much as it is? Well, it was designated as a rare from Commander 2016, so it is spiking more aggressively than other curses that are in the Grixis colors that could be found in standard sets or maybe appeared in a couple different Commander precons. As you can imagine, this is already showing up in early Lyn Cheerful Tormentor Commander deck lists, could offset some of the downside of having other curses attached to you at different times. Saldevi Excavations, this does get a little commander play, but it has been the target of a very public buyout due to its status on the reserve list. This week it goes up 916 to 4438. Edgar Markov from Commander 2017, only found in foil. This goes up $12.32 this week to $80.05. This is getting a reprint, but it is being reprinted as a Judge foil, so not a whole lot of copies are going to get into the marketplace. I do think it is overdue for a broader reprint, so be careful. Something could come out at some point. But right now, this card is just skyrocketing. And of course, it makes sense. This is a very popular Vampire Tribal commander. We have already seen Vampire Tribal support in Innistrad Midnight Hunt. We know there's a ton more coming in Crimson Vow, as well as the commander deck Vampiric Bloodline. Plus, there is speculation that Edgar could be the character marrying Olivia in Crimson Vow. And that takes us to the premium spotlight, and I say this every week, but there's just so many things happening in the premium market, we can't cover it all. I try to pick at least a couple cards every week that are moving due to something that's truly happening in the news or tied into gameplay. I don't like to cover cards that are just going up because they dried up in the marketplace or they were the target of a buyout. This week I picked two cards. Again, in this section, much like the Vintage Spotlight, the prices you see on the screen will be reminiscent of something you might see on a price tracking website. But again, if true sales aren't lining up, I'll let you know. First, we have Aggravated Assault. The Amonkhet Invocations copy is up $13.13 this week to $96.43. The Onslaught foil is up $27.48 to $134.98. Is this for real? Well, raw Invocation copies have been selling for about $75. Onslaught foils are breaking $100 now. I just think this is a case where sellers are trying to stay ahead of the spike, so they're pricing the cards a little bit higher, but the prices seem to be racing in this direction anyway. We'll have to see what happens. And finally, we have Worldfire, the foil for Magic 2013. It's up $55.23 to $62.95. Is that for real? Yeah, you know what? In reality, I have seen high-grade raw copies selling for about $75, so this price is moving quick. And that does it for another episode of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. If you made it to the end, hey, thanks for sticking with me. As always, stay safe out there. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon and have a great day.